What is up, Packers fans, and welcome to another episode of Packer Report TV. Joining me today, my good friend from Acme Packing Company, Dusty Evely, and we are here to break down some of the film from Green Bay's. I'm not going to go so far as critical, but it's a big one, man. Anytime you can go get a road win. Green Bay now, I believe, undefeated on the road. If
Sounds right.
that's
I've not looked it up. That sounds
Yeah,
right.
right. Because I think you have a neutral site loss to the Eagles and a home loss to the Vikings. To me, that smells like you're undefeated on the road. Anytime you can bank those road wins, especially when you happen to drop one at home, it is good. 3-2. And Dusty, I do kind of feel like, and I think a lot of these are questions that have answers, whether it's returning personnel, different personnel that can be used, even, can make some excuses certainly about, well, they're getting used to the Halfley system on the defensive side, or Jordan Love is just sort of, shaking the rust off on the offensive side. There's always,
Yeah.
it seems like there's always excuses, but I think a lot of these have answers, right? Even offensively. Well, 9 and 87 weren't out there. Like there are answers to some of these questions, I guess. But what I'm kind of getting at is I think this was a win that people were annoyed by, which I don't think should ever happen on the road. But it was a win and people were like, you know what I mean?
Well, and so much of that just comes down to like who are the Rams playing at this point? Like that's not a great roster that's just absolutely been eaten.
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of people, and I'm certainly in this camp as well, went into this game thinking, listen, this should be a nice, easy, at least 10-point win. Because who the Rams have at this point, like on their offensive line, on the defense. Now they have a good pass rush, we knew that, but like defensively, who's back there? Their pass catchers, who do they have? Like, was it Jordan Whittingham or something? Got like 14 targets. Like, and I think that's the thing. You go into this thinking it's going to be an easy win. And for a while in the second half there, it looked like it was going to be, and then it became a little tougher. So I think it's an expectations thing, which I get, but also, as we all know, winning in the NFL is hard. Like you take your wins. There are no easy wins here.
Yeah. And here's the thing. Here's the big three things to me. Road, good opposing coach, good opposing quarterback. I am very rarely going to go into the game with those three things and think it's going to be easy. A road game against a good coach with a good QB. Now, does nothing else matter? I'm not going to go there, but and it might even sound like I'm making excuses. I just think it's tough. And Green Bay was not without their losses. Your best defensive player's out. Your most explosive offensive player in Watson is out. Although I guess you could say Reed is right there too. I guess I mean more just like athletically, literally explosive. And you're missing Dobbs, which I think missing Dobbs becomes a bigger deal because you're missing Watson. You're thin on the offensive line because you don't have Morgan. You don't have
you still can't run under center play action.
Yep. Yeah. You don't have your best interior rusher this season, which, by the way, has absolutely been Devontae Wyatt. I mean, I'm sorry, it just has been. So again, there are personnel questions for the Packers the same way that there are personnel questions for the Rams. But I digress. I do digress. I'm gonna dive right into mine, if you don't mind, Dusty. You got more of kind of an intricate one, or maybe one that's just off the bingo card, just a little bit. But folks, I'm gonna bring you to quarter 3, 11:26 left in the game, 2nd and 6. The Tucker Kraft bomb touchdown. So we get here is a little bit of a condensed formation. Matt LaFleur loves condensed formations because it brings more of the field into play after the snap. You are kind of breaking out into the field with some of your route concepts, which is a good use of the grass, and I do like it. And you've got Jordan Reed back in from LaFleur's day in Washington. Goodness gracious. Jaden Reed kind of in the wing spot, really tight to Kraft up at the top of the formation. Jacobs in the backfield. I believe you have Melton, and then it's another one. So I'm going to guess that's Heath next to Melton here down at the bottom. And you get the orbit motion to Jaden Reed. And what I love here, and I think eventually teams are going to start checking on this or trying to react to it, because this is a very similar motion from an offensive line standpoint as the Emmanuel Wilson touchdown 2 weeks ago against the Titans, in that they pull a guard. And what are you taught in middle school Pop Warner as a linebacker, if the guard will take you to the ball, that you can do all the counters and all the nonsense that you want with ball handling. Get your eyes off the football, get your eyes on the guards. That's what you tell an 11-year-old, when we're trying to teach Pop Warner ball. Well, it absolutely works in that. Dusty and I spent like 3 minutes before the show trying to get through what in the world we thought this coverage was. What ends up happening, regardless, is that you get both linebackers to flow with Jaden Reed, and you get the defensive end on the top side. So the boundary defensive end also definitely slows down his rush and is ready to make a play on Reed or not let Reed outside him. So that slows down the rush. What really works here, though, is you've got a deep post cross, whatever you want to call it, from Melton that takes the nickel away. Now, the reason that this defense is so confusing to me is because most of the principles look like zone, except 30 is in man. He is running with Bo Melton across the screen in a very get out of here type way, but both the field corner and the free safety seem to be very much playing zone principles. The problem that the Rams then run into is because 30 vacated that area, and because the play side, or the field side corner 24 Darius Williams has to respect that's Wicks, not Heath, has to respect what Wicks is doing vertically. The deep over to Tucker Kraft could not possibly be more open, because 30's not there anymore, and neither linebacker ran with him, period. And I think this would have been a decent play call to try and fit into the keyhole between 30 and 24. But 30 just left in man coverage. So this is a coverage bust on multiple levels. But even if it wasn't, I think it would have been a cool design, because either you could have gotten Kraft on the deep over anyway and maybe just gets tackled sooner, or if they're freaking out about Kraft, I think you probably have a 12, 15-yard chunk to Josh Jacobs in the flat if that's not available. I just think this is well-designed offense. And then if you let the play run through, you just see excellent downfield blocking by Dontavion Wicks, maybe a business decision here by 27, and a 66-yard touchdown by a tight end, the longest since Tom Crabtree, I think in like 2018. But Dusty, I really like that one.
Yeah. The funny thing to me about that one too is you can see Love. I think Love is expecting that boundary to maybe drop down a little bit. So he's ready to throw a little earlier, but Reader still has a little bit of depth there. So Love actually just waits it out. Like, I think he's ready to throw where protection's good. He's like, well, I'll wait for Reader to clear, and then we got this. So he delays, I think, the delivery a little bit just because Reader is still playing for depth. He's trying to figure out what to do there. But with that boundary just completely abandoned. This was we were talking ahead of time, kind of the same general idea they ran that first play against the Titans, where they had Reed kind of pop open and something like this. Different run concept they're looking at. That was kind of like a pin pull, and then Reed sneaks out. But it's the same general idea on this, where you get like the defense flowing one way, you play with those linebackers. Those Rams linebackers are just not good, and they just ate them alive. And yeah, some of the coverages we were saying ahead of time were what, quarter zero maybe. Like I don't know.
No
idea what they're doing.
I got nothing for you. I mean, sometimes you'll see a team play like 3 under, 3 over with one man on like a key guy, but why would that be Bo Melton? No disrespect to Bo Melton, but like why would it be 3 under, 3 over with the spy, or the one, like, I don't know. It does.
Yeah, I think it was bad linebacker play and a confusion somewhere in the call is certainly what that looked like to me. But like you said, I think it's a good play call regardless. The throw gets tighter, but I still think that's a big play no matter how you look at it.
Yeah, and you were mentioning the footwork from Love. I mean, he hits the top of his drop, and instead of just zipping that thing, we get the one forward shuffle, because normally the progression would be, if it's there after you've hit your back foot, let it fly.
Yeah.
And we get that one forward shuffle, and it works out even better. I mean, he allows Kraft to clear, then it's wide open. I mean, on obviously live on TV copy, I couldn't believe how open he was. I simply could not believe it.
There's no one on the screen. There's no one on the screen to catch that ball.
Yeah, especially, like I said, especially on the TV copy, he is just simply alone. And then I think a lot of tight ends. That's a 30-yard gain. Tucker Kraft isn't a lot of tight ends.
Yeah, no, you get the stiff arm, and then you get the Wicks downfield blocking. Yeah, mine is is my little hipster pick here. I really like this play, man. So this was if you're looking timestamp, first quarter, 2 minutes and 9 seconds left. It's 3rd and 2. Packers are on their own 13. They come out in 11 personnel in a very condensed look, single back, under center, one of the few under centers we get
This
here.
is the drop.
This is the read drop. This is the read drop. So
Fine.
we get Wicks kind of motions down. He shifts down. He's not insert, but he's like just off the line, just directly kind of off the hip of Kraft on the right. And then on the left, we have Reed and is that Heath? I think that's Heath over there. The way this plays out, like the Rams are in, they've got kind of a tight look up front. They've got looks like single high. They are playing single high. The Packers are running what I usually tag as like cross country dagger or something, where you get the internal guy instead of running like a streak, it's more like a deep over across the field, and the guy behind him runs like this big, 12 to 15 yard dig behind it. So you're clearing out the middle, you're replacing it with that dig. Packers run this a bunch. I don't think they ran it all last week. They ran it a handful of times this week. The way they get to it almost plays out like arches. They get a switch release off the line. So you get, I think Heath is the outside man, Reed's the inside man. Usually you run inside man runs that over, and then the outside man runs that dig. They switch release of the line. So Heath is running that big over. He kind of pushes in. He clears the middle. You got Reed behind him. Again, switch releasing, pushing outside to push that boundary corner out. If you think it's man free, if it's single high, you've got man to man. So he pushes out. You're forcing that dude to the boundary. So he's pushing to the boundary, get inside leverage. And then he breaks in. The way it looks, I've got this tag like cross country dagger. It plays out like a deep arches the way you're doing it, where you're kind of clear in the middle and then you just like bring a guy back on an angle out behind it. You're doing that, except you're doing it 10 yards down the field or something, and it works beautifully. You get the middle is cleared by Heath. You get a read based on him like pushing out and then angling back in. It's a really good route by him. Inside leverage, really well done. Love puts the ball on him. Linebackers kind of held in place. Love puts the ball on him. Reed just can't come up with it. Well, I think his only drop of the day. PFF has like 2 drops on the day for the Packers, which is incorrect. They had more than 2. I don't know if I think this one was one of them that they had charted as a drop, but really nice. Again, nice way to dress up one of their core concepts. Springs them open. Great call, just a drop. But I really, really like this call, this concept, and the way they kind of dressed it up to make it look fresh and new.
Yeah, Reeder did a nice job there, and I'm not saying that it wasn't, that it wasn't on Reed, but Reeder moves as Love moves, and it forces Love to make Reed stop. And what I mean by that is like Love has to throw it behind. He can't lead him.
He's got to pin it on him, basically.
Right, exactly. He has to pin it on him. And I'm not saying you don't need to make that catch, because you do. But if Reeder doesn't react to Love's movement and take 2 shuffle steps to the right, it's
ball's between the hashes, and it's a huge play.
1,000%, and we're off to the races. I think. I mean, just my opinion, we're off to the races. Anything else, Dusty, that you and I try to sprinkle in defense, you don't? No.
I did look at defense. I did watch the defense last night.
But anything that you noticed after watching the film when we're going through some of this stuff other than these specific plays, observations? Obviously mine are up at Packer Report now, but just kind of general observations after watching that much film.
I thought LaFleur did some fun stuff. I was encouraged by this just from, he obviously did some great stuff with Willis. I think last week was a little boring in terms of what he put out. And I think part of that was just maybe Love being limited. Maybe Love wanted to be comfortable and they got down by so much. I think the game plan changes. They ran some stuff like 10, 15 times last week. And it was just, I think it was kind of not static because they were moving, but kind of a boring-ish game plan they put together last week. I think this week, offensively, now there were some busts up front at the line. The pick 6 was like, there was a terrible offensive line bust there. So I think we saw a couple of those that would be nice to get cleaned up. But overall, I think this was a good game plan. I think LaFleur broke out some really fun stuff at some good times. I think had a really good plan for this game. So I did not enjoy watching last week's offensive performance. It's not just because they lost. It's not just because they threw the ball 50 some odd times. Like, it just was not, again, I don't think this was a knock on the floor. It was not an interesting game to watch last week. This week, I think, was a very interesting game to watch from both a run and pass perspective offensively.
Yeah, I agree. Defensively, the one guy, and people, I get it, man. Like the worm has turned. I don't know why people were so happy to get anti Rashawn Gary so quickly. Um, Whatever, it doesn't matter. I mean, I think folks get annoyed when guys sign big contracts, and then that raises expectations. And once they start not performing, then it's really tough for pass rushers too, because sometimes that is just a chunky position either way, as far as production standpoint. So it's like, if he's going to be a 10 sack guy, well, one of them might be another 3 sack game. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, look, I'm not necessarily excusing his play during the season. It hasn't been great, but it is surprising to me how quickly fans have like relished in he sucks. Okay. All right. But I went back and looked at just, he had 8 wins. Now they didn't get converted into pressures, right? But like he had 8 wins against Havenstein and was getting chipped a ton. I put some of those wins out on X or Twitter or whatever. You guys can go watch some of the good reps. I mean, that last pass, he was getting headlocked and it didn't get called. Like, it is crazy. That should have been a penalty drawn. Like, there needs to be more production for sure. But again, like there's some good stuff. I think Havenstein's probably top 6 or 7 right tackle in the league. And I know I keep making this excuse like, oh man, Lane Johnson, oh man, Brian O'Neill, like, oh man, like, and but guess what? It's going to be oh man, Penei Sewell. Like that's you know what I mean? And so, but I just saw some stuff against Havenstein that it was like, okay, it's still there. I'm concerned. I think is valid, but maybe not panic. Concerned, not panic.
That's where I am. I'm concerned with what I've seen, but I don't think that he's incapable of turning it around.
Sure. All right, guys. Thank you so much for watching or listening. If you are on the podcast side, have a wonderful rest of your week, and go Pack Go.
Go Pack Go.